Please welcome to the stage Executive Director of the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg Center and Vice President for Federal Strategy for Johns Hopkins University and Medicine, Sibel Bjorklund.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest event in our film screening series, Stories That Matter. Here at the Hopkins Bloomberg Center, we convene a diversity of viewpoints and disciplines to foster discovery and dialogue. Tonight's program furthers that mission by bringing the art of filmmaking together with musical performance in celebration of Orin O'Brien's inspiring story. The Academy Award-winning Netflix documentary, The Only Girl in the Orchestra, is a window into the trailblazing life of this low-key musical legend. We're so thrilled that Orin will be joining us by video later in the program. Here with us today is the film's Academy Award-winning director, Molly O'Brien, and the Baltimore Symphony double bassist and Peabody Conservative faculty member, Nina DeCesare. Thank you all for being a part of this wonderful program, and thank you to Netflix for letting us screen the film here today. I also want to thank the Peabody Opera Theater for partnering with us on this evening, and the Johns Hopkins Peabody Conservatory musicians who will be performing for us. Their addition to this program is very special and puts on full display the enriching interdisciplinary programming we strive for here at the Hopkins Bloomberg Center. Whether it's a music or dance performance by our Peabody colleagues, a summit on science diplomacy featuring diplomats, private sector leaders, and across the globe, and our own research experts, or an upcoming exhibition in the Frary Gallery featuring the works by artist Lindsay Adams, our wide range of programming has something for everyone. Please scan the QR code behind me to stay up to date on the next Stories That Matter screening and other opportunities to learn and engage with us here at the Hopkins Bloomberg Center. And now please join me in welcoming the founder of the Stories That Matter film series and director of the Graduate Film and Media Program at the Johns Hopkins Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, Sig Libowitz.
Hey, everybody. It's nice to see this kind of crowd. Welcome to Johns Hopkins and the Bloomberg Center. And I want to say something. Welcome to a really good film that you're about to see, and also a very special musical performance. As mentioned, we're going to do the screening, then the panel, and then we're going to have some of the Peabody students performing for you. Everyone's really excited for this, especially Orin O'Brien. I just want to say thank you so much for coming. And as you can probably figure out, I didn't do all this by myself. This is only possible because we have an incredible team of people. And if you'll be patient, I just want to thank particularly Sibel Bjorklund and Sally O'Brien for the leadership, but a number of other people, Catherine Alvarez, Lydia Garris, Corinna Halverson, Sloan Prince, Shamim Nikojo, Paul Bravo, Caitlin Berry, Omar Tufik, Emily DeYoung, the incredible Peter Huggins, we like to call him the concierge, and also a wonderful person, Julia Pachetti, who's an amazing publicist, and she was the publicist for this film, and she's also been my partner in putting together this film series. I also want to thank our wonderful theater crew, and also the wonderful people from Peabody who have had a chance to work with, Andrew Pike, Greg Hayes, Christopher McLaughlin. It wouldn't be possible without them. So people always ask, why Stories That Matter? And there's two reasons. One, at the graduate film school, we're teaching the kids. I've got a great faculty. Many of them are here tonight. Thank you. Yeah, let's hear it for the faculty. They're teaching the students like all these advanced cinema skills in cinematography and color correction, sound mixing, game design, virtual reality and AI tools, intellectual property. But at the heart of all of it, we keep telling them it's about telling great stories with compelling, powerful characters. And sometimes in our film series, we've had films, Academy Award nominees, winners at Sundance and at Cannes, and we've had stories here, great ones if you came last year, about the war in Ukraine, or about the situation, the global politics in Asia, or about the prison system in America, but not from the view of the prisoners or the guards or the police, but from the view of the children of those who go away. But as we tell the students, sometimes the most powerful, gripping stories are right at home. And this is one of them. You'll hear about that. We're blessed to have Molly O'Brien here, the Academy Award-winning director of this film. And she had a passion project that was right at home, which she'll tell you about and you'll see in the film. And this is a story about what does it mean if you have a passion to master a craft. What do you have to give up? What do you have to sacrifice? How does that change you? And then on top of that, what if you don't fit the bill of what people expect from this position? What if you don't match that image? How do you deal with that? And I'll leave you with this. This movie, at least in terms of it, what Orin does, it reminds me of another great film, True Grit. And I think Orin has that in spades. So sit back, enjoy, and let's watch The Only Girl in the Orchestra. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is the director of our film, Molly O'Brien. And here we have Orin O'Brien. Hi. So let me just quickly introduce the panel. As mentioned, we have an acclaimed producer and director. Molly is the head of documentary at NBC News. And also, as you may know, her most recent film, The Only Girl in the Orchestra, recently won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Short. We have Nina DeCesare, who is an instructor at Peabody. We have a lot of Peabody students here, and she's also the double bassist for the Baltimore Symphony. Thank you, Nina. And as you already can see, we are fortunate tonight to have with us Orin O'Brien. Orin. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little conversation, and then we're going to open this up for Q&A. We want to hear from everyone, and then we're going to have a special performance from some Peabody students. Thank you, led by Nina. And to start, obviously, I would love to, with this incredible movie, talk about the score and the music, because obviously it's such a big part of it. And would you tell us how you came to this score and working through this, obviously, with Orin?
Thank you. Thank you, Sig, for having me and for having The Only Girl in the Orchestra here. This is a thrill. I haven't seen it on the big screen in almost a year, so it's nice to see it up there. Well, it's a great question. One of the very first things I did, actually, was ask Orin to write down her 10 or 15 favorite pieces that feature the double bass. And so Stravinsky's Rite of a Spring, Mahler's Second, the Dvorak, and Beethoven's Seventh, were all on that list. And those pieces became the centerpiece of the score, which really, was written by Beethoven, Mahler, etc.
Good job getting those guys.
Yeah, it was a real win. Orin's teacher, Zimmerman, who sort of was her mentor, who I wish we could have included in the film more about Zimmerman, didn't make it for lots of reasons. I know Orin is disappointed that he wasn't mentioned, but I'll mention him here, Orin.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
His arrangements for the double bass were the foundation for our collaborator, Laura Cartman, who's an Academy Award-nominated composer and who works with film all the time. So her skill set was really valuable about how to translate these arrangements that Zimmerman had made with, I think Orin even transcribed them. You can ask her that. She can talk about it a little bit afterwards. that was the basis. But then Laura also put her touch on the arrangement. And then the most wonderful thing is that 4 students of Orin's went into the recording studio with Laura and Orin, who had a lot to say about the music all the way through the film, and was given a lot of control of that, and recorded these quartets and did some improv. And all of that was then brought back into Laura's studio and mixed and arranged and laid onto the picture. We had temp score before that. So it was a very collaborative process. And quite frankly, since I am not a musician, I really relied on Orin to let me know when things weren't working. I mean, we showed Orin segments of the film anytime folks were playing the double bass, and she would immediately email me and say, "That's out of tune. You got to fix that. Need you to no." Yeah, she was very involved.
I have no doubt. Orin, is there anything you would like to add to that about the music and obviously what music has meant to you in your life?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to correct Molly's very nice gesture to me to say that all 4 of the bass quartet that played in this were my students. They were not. 2 of them were, but the other 2 were former students of mine. The first bass, the guy that played the high parts in the quartet, was Samuel Suggs, who I'm sure Nina would know that name. He's not only a fantastic bass player, he is a composer and a teacher. And he was chosen by Don Palma, who was my first choice for the bass quartet. Don played second bass. Don studied with me when he was 19. After our beloved teacher, Fred Zimmerman, died, he came to me and asked me, could you please show me because he had studied with him a year before he died. And so I just continued on showing him what I had known from Zimmerman. And that's the reason I started to teach, by the way, is because Fred Zimmerman died and I wanted to be able to tell people what he contributed to bass pedagogy, which was phenomenal. And so it was Sam Suggs, Don Palma, and the third bass was Jackie Danilo, who was a former student of mine, who played in the Met for more than 40 years, Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. And the fourth bass player is another genius, another Sam Zagnut, who studied with David Grossman at Manhattan School, and then he studied with Don Palma at Yale. Then he came back to Manus and did a composer-performer degree. So he's also a composer. So you have a composer on the top part and composer on the bottom part. So we had a saturated musician-heavy bass quartet that all had their own opinions. And they played arrangements of bass quartets of pieces that my teacher had arranged, mostly from the Renaissance, some Bach, some Mozart, some Russian Orthodox choir stuff. He did 4 volumes of that in the 1960s because he felt that bass players do not have enough chamber music. Like, obviously, if you're a violinist, violist, or cellist, you go to a conservatory for 4 years, every week you have a lesson in chamber music, starting with Mozart and Haydn quartets when you're a freshman. Then you get to Opus 18, Beethoven. The second year, the third year, you may be allowed to do some Brahms. And the fourth year, you can get Schumann and Dvorak. But we bass players, we sort of have the Trout Quintet naturally, but we have to make chamber music on our own. It's not scheduled in most schools. If I'm wrong about this, please, I'd like to be corrected, but I would like to have a regular hour at least or 2-hour bass class every week just for chamber music, because there's tons of stuff. One of my bass students, Paul Nemeth, made a website, over 4,000 pieces for double bass, 2 people up to 8 people, two instruments up to 8 instruments, including bass. So people say, oh, there's so few things for bass. Well, actually, there's a lot if you research it. And he made this website so people would have an easy time of researching it. So that's one of the things that I really stress. Chamber music for bass players helps you be a better musician. It enlarges your scope, your musical scope, and also helps you play better in an orchestra. Because if you play with the understanding of a chamber music musician, George Sell used to say, orchestra playing is large chamber music. So I rest my case. So I've talked enough. Okay.
That seems like a wonderful point to stretch over to Nina, both on your thoughts on that, but also, what did you take from the film? And what do you take? We've spoken a little bit about, obviously, your knowledge of Orin. What do you take from this experience?
I think it's really just such a privilege to be able to see more into Orin's inner world, especially in relation to, the topic of aging and what it means to retire from an orchestra when, as musicians, we truly never retire. I mean, those of us that have decided to make this our career and our passion, like, it lives within us and it is the most important thing in our lives, regardless of whether we're going to work that day or not. So it's always on my mind, as different seasons of life progress, how will I kind of come to meet that? And so it's really such an honor to watch how Orin has really taken this last chapter of her life, and her passion for mentoring and teaching is really inspiring.
Thank you. And Orin, I know that teaching has meant so much to you. That comes across both what you gained from your teacher and what you try to teach to your students. And obviously we have a lot of students here tonight, both at Hopkins and Peabody. And what has teaching meant to you? And what are you hoping that this film and what you do give to as a legacy to future generations?
Well, my teacher was in the New York Philharmonic, hired by Toscanini in 1930, and he retired the year I joined. So he had 36 years in the New York Philharmonic. He also played a lot of chamber music with a chamber group that was formed within the Philharmonic. He did a lot of outside work, recordings and things. And he had such an artistic view of life in general. When you went into his apartment, you saw a tremendous amount of paintings that he had started collecting when he was very young. He was sort of tempted by art as a career. He started out not knowing, when he was a student at Stuyvesant High School in New York, he started out thinking, should I be a musician or should I be a painter? Because he sketched and painted his whole life. He used to come home from a Philharmonic concert at 11 o'clock at night and paint until 2 in the morning, and then get up at 7, practice, and then go to work, go to rehearsal, and then come home and teach all afternoon, and then go and play a concert. So, he was always involved with art. And when you have a lesson, if you were curious about one of his paintings, which were either by Max Beckmann or Paul Klee, or he had a sketch by Van Gogh, he had tons of stuff, and he was an expert on the paintings of Paul Klee. And he said, if you're interested in borrowing one of my art books to find out more about this painter, go ahead, just bring it back. Just don't keep it, bring it back so other people. So I borrowed a lot of stuff from him my first year. He also used to encourage his students to broaden their views on the humanities. In other words, he would encourage you to study some sort of psychology. He sent me to lectures by Erich Fromm at the 92nd Street Y. And that made me want to read on psychology, which was certainly very interesting and valuable, especially for a teacher. I'm sure Nina would agree that you use a lot of psychology with your students. The ones that are very motivated, that's no problem. But the ones are less motivated, or they're not quite sure what direction to go, you have to use psychology to kind of bring them out. And I just felt that his way of teaching was it was teaching the whole person, not just music. And that's kind of a hard thing to do. But you know what I found in my retirement years, a lot of my time is spent visiting with former students that they call me up and they say, can I come over and play for you? Or I'm taking an audition, I want to run by you. Or can I come over and just talk? I think one of the most valuable things a teacher can give a student is just to listen. And I was talking about, Molly asked me something last week, what do you get out of teaching? Or what do you think is the most important thing about teaching? Or, something related to that. And I told this to my gyrotonic teacher, who's a former ballerina, Italian ballerina, who's a wonderful person. And I told her about this question about what is it about teaching that's so rewarding? So I started in a long explanation about, when you see a student being able to play something because they finally can play something after you show them a technical element that they improved on, and they're able to play it, and you see the look on their face, oh, I finally understood how to play the last movement of Mozart 40th. I was playing it wrong, and that was stopping me from attaining the right tempo and the right bow stroke, etc. And the other thing that my gyrotonic teacher said, she said, it's very easy to say, what is there about teaching? Giving is receiving. Basically, you get back from a student as much as they get from you, because you get a window into their lives and you see what they're affected by, you see what they love. Of course, what I love to see, if a student falls in love with a piece like Brahms, the Double Concerto by Brahms for violin and cello, I'm so nuts about that piece. I heard it on the radio today. I had to stop what I was doing and just listen. When you see a student as excited by a piece of music as you have been, you say, oh, good, civilization is not dead. That's what I think, because you're passing, what we're doing is passing on civilization when we're teaching, especially classical music, which everybody says is dying. Well, I don't find it's dying at all, not with my students. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you can see a lot of people agree with you, Orin. So there you go.
Well, there's civilized people that are here. I can see that.
We pride ourselves on that at Hopkins. Yes, there you go.
I'm sure.
So my next question, back to you, Molly. Molly taught a wonderful masterclass today to our graduate film and media students, and you raised something that I thought was great. You talked about, as a documentarian, the difference between interviewing and prompting. And I was hoping you might be able to speak to that.
Sure. So rather than sitting Orin down for a sit-down interview straight to camera, which often feels like there's a one-eyed monster staring at you and can make you very rigid and defensive, understandably, having that lens right at you and nobody to relate to, we decided in this film to have her in conversation with her students, with her friends, with her colleagues, with me. And we didn't write a script, obviously. It's a documentary. But we did prompt. So when Jackie Danilo came to her apartment and sat down, I gave her all those clippings that Orin had kept over the years with the offensive misogynist headlines, and said, Jackie, have you ever seen these? She had not, and she read them out loud, and then I sat back and watched them have their conversation. So that was something that we did a lot rather than interview, because if I had asked Orin in a sit-down interview what happened with all the PR and the publicity and the interviews in 1966, 67 when you first joined the orchestra, she would have said, well, it was highly unpleasant, I didn't like it. But I wouldn't have gotten the exchange, the story, the emotion. So I think documentary gets boring and like broccoli when it becomes about the information only. Obviously, it's great when it's informative and engaging. You want that. But if it's just about the information and doesn't have emotion, people turn it off. So rather than interview, prompt, you'll get more emotion, you'll get more story.
I think that's great, and it kind of goes back to this idea of, we are drawn to stories, and you said it today. Interviews or information prompting gets you tremendous stories, and I think that you really got that in this film. You go under again with someone, Orin, who you are delightful, Orin, but I know you did not want to do this, and it's such a treasure though that we get to have this story. I was going to ask, actually, before I do anything, I was asked by Orin to announce that there's a very special guest here tonight, and I would get in trouble if I didn't say this. Orin, I do not want to get in trouble with you. We have in the audience Susan Long Quainton, who is someone that Orin went to high school with back at Beverly Hills High. And in fact, they played together. Susan was her double bass stand partner, correct? Correct, Orin? Yes? Okay. And in fact, she talked about the fact that at the start, Susan was better than her, and she gave her something to really strive for and reach out to. So Susan, I don't know where you are, but thank you. Where's Susan? Susan, there she is. Definitely. Susan, she also wanted me to mention that you were the valedictorian of the high school class, so congratulations. It's not forgotten. Could you talk, Molly, you also did a wonderful thing about what this story meant to you because of Orin being your aunt, and you talked about the importance of aunts and your elders. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I mean, I say it in the film, Orin is the adult, growing up, Orin is the adult I admired most. I think that, aunts and aunties and the guardians, the elder women who help us raise our kids. I'm the mother of two, and I have a circle of friends. I'm an only child, so they don't have aunts on my side, but we have an aunt on my husband's side. Those women are hugely influential and undervalued, and their stories are often not told. And I think they hold the world up. I think Orin holds the world up. I think she holds the double bass up. I think she holds her students up, and I know she held me up. So I wanted to make the film about that in some way.
I think that's lovely. Really good. So we're going to move to Q&A very shortly. So if you have a question, we have some mics up on both sides of the aisle. You can go to those, and we're happy to hear your question for any of our guests. I was going to ask you, because we didn't have the chance, obviously Orin was talking about teaching, but what does teaching mean to you, and what does it mean for you and your students?
I was just so inspired watching this film again, how many of her students came to be involved and how close they clearly were, and when you were speaking about how they want to meet with you just to talk, and I was kind of thinking, like, there are so many different hats that we wear as teachers. So obviously there's how do you play the bass physically, right? Like, how do you make the exact sounds that you want at the exact right time in a healthy way, all of that. And then how do you develop your musical ear? How do you move about in the professional space? Like, for example, when you arrive in a new space, how do you figure out how to adapt to the space? Things like that. But one of the most important roles that we play is really helping to shepherd people through different seasons of their lives, which I know I said earlier, but for example, teaching at the college level, we're helping people to progress from being children into adults. And that's a huge responsibility that we take on, and, seeing these students 1 to 2 hours a week. And as important as it is that we're helping them to sound better and better, we also have to make sure that they are growing to be, good adults and, mentally healthy. And so, yeah, I was really inspired. And I think one of the most powerful things about this movie is to see how Orin persevered through everything, all the things that were in the news about you and everything, and just the fact that your students were able to kind of see you show up every single week and sound awesome and have a smile on your face, and it's just incredible.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to take questions from the audience, so if anybody, it's hard for us to see you, but if anybody has any, if you want to come down to the microphone. And while we're waiting for questions, there you go. That helped a little bit. So please, you see there's stands right here. I'm moving my mic. There's stands right here on both sides. I think we have someone coming down. Yes, for a question? I love it. So we'll give you a second to come on down. And anybody else who has questions? Oh, and someone's coming on the other side. Perfect. Why don't we start off with you? Now, I will just say, before you start, if we could, it's called a question and answer period. So if we could, please, people came here obviously to hear from Orin and from our guests. So if you could please keep your questions as questions, not statements. And if you keep them short and pithy, we really appreciate it. So please, go ahead.
I don't know if I can comply with the pithy, but I'll try to keep it short.
Okay.
Orin, this question is for you. First, thank you for all that you've done for trailblazing for so many women. And my question is, I believe it was in high school when you were told to go into the closet to find the double bass there. My question is, if your teacher had said a different instrument, what would you have chosen if you had the choice?
Well, I played piano for 10 years before I started the bass, which gave me an advantage. At least I knew how to read music, at least 2 clefs, not tenor clef yet. I was already attracted to music very much. I listened to it at home. My mother told me when I was a baby, I stopped crying when she put a recording on of classical music. So that was already a good thing to know. But I think looking back, Molly asked me this question like years ago, why did I pick the bass or something? First of all, I was 5'9" when I was 12 years old. I was tall. And I think the conductor of the high school orchestra said to me, "You're tall. We need bass players. If you go in that closet," that was sort of linked. The fact that you're tall meant that you could pick it up and carry it around. If you're short, maybe that wouldn't work so well. But I have to say, since many of my friends have turned out to be woodwind players, I think if I had to choose a wind instrument, it would be bassoon.
I think we have to prepare for the next documentary.
Okay.
Okay, you got it, Molly. She's in.
You're going to play bassoon now?
I wish. One of my best friends in the orchestra that's also retired, we go to concerts together. And I listen to the bass, she listens to the bassoon.
We're ready for our next question. Please go ahead, sir.
Hi, thank you guys for organizing this. Really appreciate it. Exceptional film honoring an exceptional person. My question is for Miss Orin O'Brien. I was curious, Miss O'Brien, during the film you talk about your double bass as a pet. Do you, like B.B. King and Lucille, have any pet names among your double basses? Just wondering. Thank you.
You mean like a name of a pet?
Yes.
Sure. My first bass, which weighed 32 pounds, and I only sold it last year because I didn't have room for a lot of basses, and my new apartment was smaller. Its name was Roderick, and I think I named it because it was close to my teacher's name of Frederick. Roderick was kind of like an old-fashioned courtly name, a sort of a knight in shining armor or something like that, and his name was Roderick. And I guess I have an English bass, the maker is Duke, and I call it Duke, you know? I guess I hadn't, I sold a French bass that was a Bernadelle bass to a wonderful, lovely guy, a student of Don Palmas from Yale, and he loved it, and he called me up, he said, "I've named it Bernie because its name is Bernadelle," so he's named the Bernadelle Bernie. So there you go. That's some of the names. We think of the name of the maker very often, but in this case, I think Bernie was a very good name for Bernadelle.
Lovely. What is that like when you have spent all these years with an instrument and now you're turning some of them over to other people?
Well, the instrument that I played for 55 years in the Philharmonic, and before that I played it for 10 years in New York City Ballet, I was very sad to part with it, but it was a practical matter because that bass, when I finally took it home after my last Philharmonic concert, I had never weighted before. But I remember the last couple of years I was in the orchestra, I used to have to ask one of my wonderful male colleagues, "Could you help me up the stairs?" At the end of the concert with the bass, there's 7 steps going up to the bass room in the Philharmonic Hall where we played. And when they renovated the hall, they never got rid of the steps. I thought maybe they would make a gradual incline. Like in Berlin, everything's on one floor. You don't have to go upstairs or downstairs. So I felt that if I died and Molly was stuck with selling Roderick, nobody would buy it. They would lift it and say, "Oh, it's too heavy, I don't want to buy it." So I sold it to a very strong young student of mine that doesn't think it's that heavy, so, you know.
We're going to move.
But it was a terrible feeling to say goodbye, but I know it's with somebody that plays beautifully, and I hope he wins an audition with it.
Thank you. We're going to move to the next question, please.
Hello.
You step up a little more.
Hello. Oh, hi. Just before I ask my question, I want to say, as a freshman bass student at Peabody, you are like one of my idols, and this is incredibly inspiring to see. Both the film and just being able to see you right now is really cool. So just thank you, all of you, obviously. My question is, I guess now that I'm in this position of studying at conservatory, if you had a key piece of advice you'd give yourself to like that age range, do you have anything that you wish you knew or something you wish you could tell yourself as like a studying musician in college?
I have some advice. I would say, you're in a school now, you're at Peabody. If somebody else plays something that you like or has a technique that you admire, ask them how they do that. Because when you're at a school that has a lot of different students of your instrument, that's where you get a lot of other information that maybe your teacher doesn't have time at a lesson, or they don't have time that week to cover that particular element. Whenever you see anybody that you like what they do, ask them, could you show me how to do that? Because that way you get a free lesson almost every day. And that is one of the resources that nobody talks about, your fellow students, and because they're all different levels. I was lucky when I was at Juilliard, I had two other bass players that were friends that were also students of my teacher. The three of us went to each other's lessons on Thursday afternoon. All three of us showed up to all the lessons that we three took. We each had like the equivalent of 3 lessons because we listened to the other 2. So I think if your teacher allows that, that's also wonderful. And it's sharing. And we like to play together so much, the 3 of us. And they were older than me and they were better than me. So I was like thrilled to be included in their company. And we used to practice before the 9 a.m. rehearsal at Juilliard on Tuesdays and Fridays. We used to practice together at 8 o'clock, the bass part of whatever difficult thing. We used to practice together. And that also is something that you can do by yourselves. You don't have to have your teacher hanging over you to do that. Just sort of, I would say, be creative. Also, I want to mention one other thing. One of the boys in my rep class, for the last class in every semester, he would bake cookies and bring them in for the class. That's also a nice thing to do. People are very appreciative. And I did that my first recording date in the Philharmonic. I brought cookies in and they looked at me like I was crazy, but they ate the cookies.
That's great. That's great. And I very much say this to our film students. You learn as much from your classmates as you'll learn from your teacher.
Yes.
And you have to be open to that. That's great. Well, we have another question, please.
Hi. So my question, my question has to do with the process of getting into the Philharmonic. So you talked about the kind of learning and the passion, but as the first woman, there must have been steps, right, to get there. Like, how did you get an audition as a woman? How did you get, were there others that were auditioned and they just decided that they didn't meet some bar, so they weren't going to make the exception? I'm just kind of interested in that piece of it.
Well, you know something, how much time do we have? Because
as much as you want.
I could talk to it for a couple of days on this subject.
Well, we don't have that much time.
No, well, I'll try to be a little bit concise, but I can't cut out too much because it's all important. Because there were 10 years from the time I came to New York, well, actually there were 12 years from the time I came to New York as a not very good bass player, and I had 3 years of study with Zimmerman at Juilliard, and then I lucked in to, when I was in my 3rd year with him, he said, there's an opening at the Philharmonic, and I have 3 other students that I want them to try out. They're professionals. They're already older than you. They've been professional for years. But I want you to audition with them. And I said, well, but I ushered at Carnegie Hall for 2 years. My first 2 years at Juilliard, I made some extra money, $3.45 a night, was ushering at Carnegie and hearing the Philharmonic for nothing and getting paid a big $3.45 to put on your used uniform that many other people had used before you. And you went and you ushered. And I learned so much from that because I heard the best music 7 nights a week. And it was just a phenomenal education. So that was part of it. I watched the Philharmonic playing 4 times a week for 2 years. So I learned that they played in a certain way. They played differently from Philadelphia. They played differently from some of the other orchestras, the European orchestras that came in. I personally thought they were the best because they changed styles with every different conductor. They responded differently to every conductor. They were just incredibly versatile. So when my teacher said, I want you to audition, I said, but there are no women in the orchestra. I think that may be a problem. He said, well, write the personnel manager a letter saying you'd like an audition appointment and see what happens. Because if you play well enough, they have to take you. That's what my teacher said to me. And of course, I believed everything he told me. And so I thought, well, maybe he's right. And the other 3 guys that were playing, the 4 of us went to my teacher's apartment a week before the audition, which was in October of 1956. And we all played for each other. I had put on my best black dress and a pair of heels, which I wasn't used to playing in. And when I started to play, my teacher said, "You're playing out of tune. Something's wrong. You didn't play out of tune at your lesson. Take off your shoes." So I took off my shoes, and that was correct because I never played with heels when I was practicing, threw my body off. That's an important thing to know. Always wear the same shoes that you practice in. You know, make sure, because it throws your body off. We all played standing auditions in those days because you never knew what kind of a stool you would get. So we all learned to play standing up. So the first time I auditioned, the person that won was one of the four of us, was a Zimmerman student, which was very exciting because at that point, no Zimmerman student had won an audition, although he was considered the best bass teacher maybe in the whole country. But there was, there's many oppositions in auditions. There are many difficulties that have nothing to do with playing. And I don't have to go into that because there's politics in every situation, whether you like it or not. And so I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking about, I hope I play the right notes. And I hope, because in those days, they said, you will play a solo and then there will be sight reading. So you had to be really an experienced professional and know all 9 Beethoven symphonies, 4 Brahms, 4 Schumann, all the overtures, all the Mozart and Haydn symphonies, the tone poems of Strauss. You have to learn a huge amount of repertoire just to feel competent to go there and audition because you had no idea what they would ask. So the second time I played 5 years later in 1961, and I didn't play well because I had been on tour with New York City Ballet for 3 weeks and I couldn't practice because you finish performance, you put your bass in the trunk and they ship the trunk away with the costumes and the scenery and you don't see it until the next night. So I had no chance to practice. So I got back to New York and Zimmerman called me up. He said, "There's an opening. There's going to be an audition in a week. You got to practice." I said, "I can't do this in a week. I'm not prepared." "Well, you have to play because they're very seldom an opening." So I played. I got to the finals, but I messed up. I messed up Zarathustra, I have to tell you, which something you really have to practice for weeks, if not months, to play it well. So that's okay. I got to play in the Met after that. I got a phone call the next day, and the guy that was principal bass at the Met was a student of Zimmerman. He knew I could play. He said, "You want to play the ring cycle with Eric Leinsdorf? He's adding a 7th bass for that." So I played at the Met for the next 5 years, in addition to playing with New York City Ballet. So the next time, I knew I needed 6 weeks, 3 hours a day, in addition to all the work that I was doing. If I had a rehearsal in the morning, concert at night, I practiced an hour and a half in the afternoon. I practiced at midnight till 1:30 after my concert at night. So I prepared. The next time I felt I could play anything because I was professional. Also, I have to tell you another wonderful advantage that I never thought of until afterwards. Many of the men in the New York City Ballet, and by the way, there were quite a lot of women in New York City Ballet in the 1950s. They were wonderful. Everybody was a wonderful player. We had fabulous repertoire. Stravinsky was writing ballets for Balanchine, who was the choreographer. So we had fantastic repertoire, and it was a wonderful orchestra and gave me wonderful experience. Several of those musicians, the second trumpet, the second trombone, and the second bassoon, went to the Philharmonic a few years before I did. So they were already in the orchestra. And when I won the job, they were there to welcome me. And there were also many other people in the orchestra that I had known because they freelanced. They did other jobs besides the Philharmonic. They did a chamber music something or other. So I knew quite a few of them. And I knew all their names already because I ushered for 2 years. And you read the program every night while you're waiting for the concert to start or something. You memorize the names. So I knew all the guys in the orchestra. And I felt that I was a fan of theirs because I had watched them play for 2 solid years. I watched every note that they played. So I was like a Philharmonic groupie that suddenly was part of the group. And I was, it was a wonderful feeling. And Bernstein embarrassed me by complimenting me in front of the orchestra when there was a divided bass party and I made an entrance that was correct. He would say, "Bravo, Orin," in front of the guys, which made me turn red in embarrassment because I didn't want to be singled out. I thought, oh, all the guys will be mad at me because he said my name, so, but they were very forgiving. So it wasn't a problem. as many think it was a problem being female. It wasn't a problem. It was a problem playing German bow in a section that only one other person played German bow. That was more of a barrier than being female. And also being a Zimmerman student, because Zimmerman was the big teacher, people were kind of jealous of him. And since only one other person that he taught was in the orchestra, who quit the orchestra the week that I joined and went to be principal bass in the Detroit Symphony. So, you know, it was an odd situation with many other ideas and pressures that had nothing to do with being female.
Okay.
In fact, I felt I was better treated by Bernstein than many of the other new people in the orchestra. So he gave me a solo in the first children's concert, which I was very shocked to do. So anyway, I hope that's enough of an explanation. You got to prepare until you can't sleep at night because you're thinking about a fingering or a bowing. You really have to prepare like a maniac for an audition. And play for as many people as you can. That's another thing, which I'm sure your teachers at Peabody will tell you. Always play for as many people as you can a week or so before you take an audition. That way you get used to playing in front of people, which you don't when you're practicing, you're alone.
Well,
so that's my advice.
Thank you, Orin. And
okay, I know that's long-winded.
No, not at all.
Sorry.
Not at all. And not only that, you gave me the perfect segue to turn it over to Nina so that we can actually now hear the Peabody musicians play. So, Nina.
Yeah, so you'll be hearing 2 performances tonight. The students are so excited to be included in this event honoring Orin, and they're so excited that she'll be able to hear them. The first performance will be by one of our sophomores, Claire Russell. She'll be playing Romance by Amy Beach. And then she'll be joined by 3 of our graduate students, and they will be playing a collection of Finnish dances arranged by Peter Granz.
Welcome back, Orin.
Thank you all very much.
We're really happy that you could be here with us tonight and that you could see these wonderful young musicians play.
Very lovely.
Thank you. Well, I would like to say not only very lovely, really beautiful, really lovely, lovely work. Thank you so much to the Peabody students and musicians who played for us.
Thank you very much.
And we also, I really want to thank our theater crew who made everything happen with the virtual and making this all wonderful with everything. Joe O'Hagan, who leads our theater team, and his people, including Aaron Eaton and Adam Scalisi on the sound mixing. And I also want to thank our guests. Let's hear it for Molly O'Brien, the director of this film. And Nina DeCesare, who joined us on the panel and who taught these guys. So let's hear it for that. And Nina is also the double bassist at the Baltimore Symphony. And finally, to the incomparable Orin O'Brien. Thank you so much, Orin. It's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll come back for more events here and for more stories that matter at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg Center. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.